Doge has now marked over 7 million Social Security numbers as deceased, those still in the system who were active over the age of 120 years old. And wildly enough, they still have another 5 million to go, this according to reports. This is an article from the Daily Mail. This is written by Caitlin Corral, senior U.S. political reporter in Washington, D.C. She writes, Doge deletes an eye-popping number of dead Americans in Social Security system as top secret plans revealed. The Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, in just over 2 weeks has found and marked dead nearly 7.1 million Social Security number holders who were listed as above the age of 120. The group, headed by First Buddy Elon Musk, revealed on Sunday it still has to mark as deceased 5 million Americans currently listed as eligible for federal benefits in the government systems. The Social Security Administration, or the SSA, is facing a massive overhaul by President Donald Trump aimed at transparency initiatives. The reforms come amid a significant workforce reduction as a result from voluntary departures and staff reassignments, includes public disclosures of internal decision-making and reports on customer service metrics, such as call wait times. Perhaps most importantly is the changes to identity verification requirements after Doge found millions of Americans still in the systems with impossible age ranges, ranging from 120 all the way up to 300. Now, President Trump has been clear that good government must serve the people. The Social Security Administration's acting commissioner, Lee Dudek, said in a statement on Monday about the overhaul. This begins with being transparent in how its government makes decisions and operates as good stewards of the resources entrusted to it. Any number of holders listed above the age of 120 is a target for Doge in its clearing out of the SSA systems. While it is unclear how many of these deceased or fake number holders were receiving benefits, it is likely that at least some were dead Americans still being sent checks from the SSA. And Musk has admitted that most of what he sees as inappropriate government spending is waste of taxpayer funds, while only some amounts to intentional fraud.
Social Security is the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time.
Right, explain that.
People pay into Social Security, and the money goes out of Social Security immediately, but the obligation for Social Security is your entire retirement career. If you look at the future obligations of Social Security, it far exceeds the tax revenue. Have you ever looked at the debt clock?
Yes.
Okay. There's our present day debt, but then there's our future obligations. So when you look at the future obligations of Social Security, the actual national debt is like double what people think it is, because of the future obligations.
But considering how vast our budget is, even a small, tiny fraction of that is still an enormous amount of fraud. So I don't want to hear it. Now, those that are trying to defend the Social Security Administration have pointed out that the policy is that benefits are supposed to halt once you reach 115 years of age. So that means, in theory, none of these 7.1 million accounts should have been paid unless errors or fraud slip through the cracks. And considering that the federal government is full of wasteful, incompetent, and corrupt people, I would put it as highly likely that there is at least a small percentage of these people that are getting money from the Social Security. In fact, I can back this up. According to the Social Security Administration's Inspector General, government imposter scams, often targeting Social Security, costs the federal government an estimated $577 million. And that was for just last year alone. So knowing this, even if there's just a fraction of these 7.1 million Social Security numbers of people over the age of 120 years are still having money sent out to them, the loss in taxpayer revenue could be huge. Let's just say, for example, that just 1% of the 7.1 million people were still receiving benefits, despite being impossibly old. Okay? So that's 71,000 accounts. And let's say that they were receiving an average monthly Social Security benefit of $1,800, which is the rough estimate of the average for 2025. So you're looking at, if that's the case, at the federal government spending on Social Security to dead people, you're looking at $127.8 million per month being thrown out the window. That's $1.5 billion a year in taxpayer fraud. Now, if you scale this up to 5% of the 7.1 million Social Security numbers of people listed over the age of 120 receiving benefits, that number now reaches $7.6 billion a year being thrown away for fraudulent accounts. Now, we know from 2015 to 2022, the SSA Inspector General already admitted that there were over $71.8 billion in improper payments sent out. And that's not counting this latest findings by Doge. Now, my guess is as good as yours, but I'd wager that this piggy bank of Social Security has been getting pilfered by these so-called dead accounts for a lot longer and in far greater numbers than we might have suspected up until now. Now, naturally, this wouldn't be a story about government corruption and the attempts to end it if there wasn't some flunky in a black robe attempting to stop the purge of fraud, waste, and abuse from within the federal government. Enter U.S. District Judge Ellen Lipton Hollander in Maryland. Just a few days ago, she issued another one of these infamous TROs, or temporary restraining orders, against the Trump administration. She is blocking the Department of Government Efficiency, or Doge, from accessing the SSA systems containing personally identifiable information of millions of Americans. Her excuse was she is calling Doge's approach here of a fishing expedition for fraud based on little more than suspicion, even though we know that there are $71 billion in improper payments already being sent out, aside from all these ancient, aged Social Security numbers. But don't worry, it's just little more than suspicion, the good judge says. And so she's ordering them to delete any non-anonymized data that they've grabbed since Trump's inauguration back on January 20th. Now, she made her ruling after a bunch of little labor unions and advocacy groups cried and sued, arguing that Doge's unfettered access violated their privacy laws. And of course, the lawsuit is still grinding through the courts, with the plaintiffs pushing for a longer-term block, which, considering how corrupt these judges are, you could expect that she will most assuredly extend it once the 14 days expires, which is April 3rd. And so Doge, though locked out of the SSA's sensitive data systems, they can still access anonymized data if they jump through training hoops. But the unredacted stuff for now is still off limits to them. Now, my friends, it never ceases to amaze me just how corrupt our court system has become. It is fascinating and infuriating to watch these rogue political activist people pretending to be judges fighting tooth and nail to keep the heart of corruption beating strong within our federal government. Truly, we are living through the battle of our lifetime. The fight to finally put an end to decades of growing corruption within the federal government that threatens to consume the entire country has never been more prominent than it is now. This federal government will never cease in increasing their lust and their greed for more spending. And they will continue to increase our debt until we simply implode under the weight unless they are stopped. And these corrupt judges with their insane TROs against the administration are nothing more than part of this government corruption. They themselves are just another arm of the glut that is the federal government of the United States, all of which needs to be purged. Now, sadly, removing these judges is extremely difficult, if not impossible, in this current political climate. But something must be done. Of that, there can be no doubt.